Hi everybody, it's Randy with Direct Action Combat Performance. Today we're going to talk about gun belts, specific gun belts to a few different variations that are out there in the industry and in the market. And then I'll just explain why I picked what I did to run it, trial it, and I'll give you my feedback. All right, so for those that have been following me for a while, they know that I'm a big fan of Tier Tactical. So this gun belt is in fact a Tier Tactical belt. What you'll notice with the belt is the inner belt is a padded version, which I like. It's, you know, when you're wearing the belt for, 7 to 8 hours a day, the added padded element is a lot more comfortable for obvious reasons. So I do like that. All of these are equipped with a version of a Cobra buckle. This particular one, the way I set this up is I've got 2 pistol magazines on the left-hand side, being right-hand dominant. Got a carbine magazine in the back or onto the left-hand side. And then what you'll see here is a dump pouch. So this small variation dump pouch is made by Blue Force Gear. They make really good gear. A lot of stuff that I have on all of these belts made available by Blue Force Gear. So a small individual first aid kit, so that IFAK in the back, all the essentials that we need to help with a hemorrhage or a major bleed. And then what you'll see on this particular gun belt is the Safariland ALS system. So the automatic locking system holster, when you get turned upside down, you're climbing in through confined spaces and around vehicles, or maybe on a rope, for example. The locking system will ensure that the gun stays where it needs to be. So I do like that aspect of it. Also, what this device here affixed to the hanger, it gives us the ability to quickly change out different holsters. So if I'm running a different gun, for example, the quick locking system made by Safariland is fixed to the hanger, and you can swap that out if you want to run a different gun. So this particular gun, I've got a CZ P10 full-size gun here with a automatic locking system for this holster and this gun belt setup. So this is a Tier Tactical belt. I've been running this for quite some time. It is very comfortable. It's been holding up to the abuse that I put it through and have had no issues with it whatsoever. The gun belt here that I have in my hand now, this is made by Warrior Gear. So this is a Canadian-based company. Very solid belt. So what I like about some of the Tier Tactical gear versus some others is the flexibility in the belt. It's very personal preference. Some people like a stiffer belt, so it gives them a smoother draw when the belt is a little bit firmer. For me personally, I like the flexibility, so when I am moving around things, the gun belt will have the ability to move a little bit more efficiently with you. This particular belt made by Warrior Gear here in Canada. Solid belt. The inner belt I swapped out, so they had a flat 2-inch Velcro receiver for the inner belt. I swapped it out for a padded belt, which was made available through Tier Tactical. So the inner belt is a little bit different than what came with the belt. Both are good, just I prefer that added padding. All right, so with this holster made by Grey Fox Strategic, they make great gear. I know them on a personal level. They're also here, a Canadian-based company. They make a lot of good quality stuff, and they will modify things as you want based on requests, which is great. The only downfall that I am not a big fan of is the retention system with the particular holster is the holster friction itself. So based on how tight you have the retention screws and the hardware will determine on how smooth or how stiff that holster, reholster, or that draw stroke will be. So there's pros and cons to that. What you'll see here is I've got a very similar setup with all these belts. So I've got a personal first aid kit, a dump pouch of some variation. This one is Maxpedition gear. Spare carbine magazine, and then a couple of pistol magazines on the left-hand side. All right, so this one is made by Warrior Gear. They make great stuff, good stuff, really good high-quality stuff, and all of this stuff is available for the most part in Canada. This one here is a GBRS, so based out of the States, so a GBRS belt. So with the Warrior Gear and with the GBRS belt, what they've done very similarly is they've reinforced the actual operator belt, so the gun belt itself, the combat belt, with a material called Tigris. So Tigris is kind of a thin carbon fiber type material, which makes it a lot stiffer. So in order to get this fixed smoothly onto the holster hanger, I just cut a couple of pieces of the Tigris out just to make the insertion with the belt itself a little bit smoother, and the curvature to the hip is a little bit more optimal. And again, pistol, or excuse me, first aid kit, dump pouch, a couple pistol magazines, and a carbine magazine as well. So nice solid Cobra buckle on all of these belts. All right, so the inner belt on this particular one, the GBRS comes with 3 different belts actually. There's one for the inner belt, which will fix the combat belt, and then they have another one if you just want to keep your pants up. All right, so good quality belt. In comparison between the Warrior gear and the GBRS, very, very similar. Very similar in the way that they feel, very similar in the way that they operate, very similar in terms of firmness and flexibility. The difference is the GBRS belt, in my opinion, is overpriced. It is considerably more expensive, and you know, knowing who the guys are there, I can see why they jacked the price up. Honest to goodness, I ran them all, and from a price point, the Warrior gear equally in high quality, and a fraction of the price. And then the last one is another version of a Tier Tactical belt. I have it set up very, very similar, you know, first aid kit, dump pouch made by Blue First Gear. And then with this particular carbine carrier, the Gray Fox guys, what they've done, what I asked them to do is have the carbine magazine sit a little bit deeper into the carrier itself. And because I'm a small guy with a short torso, I find, like I spoke about in a previous segment with the carrier, the length of the carrier can sometimes get fetched up on these magazines. So what I asked them to do is lower the carbine magazine a little bit. So what they've done is they've built basically an addition to the carbine carrier out of Tigris. So it's firm, it's solid, it'll protect the feed lips of the magazine against debris, dirt, and you know, stuff that you may find on the ground, for example. But it does give a little bit deeper of a set, so there's less risk of the carrier running foul to the magazine carriers on both the carbine and the pistol. So I really like that. Gray Fox Strategic made this particular carbine carrier. And then, like the holster we talked about a little bit. So what you'll notice is this holster, it only operates on the friction. The retention, I mean, is based on the friction of the holster itself. So with the retention screws, you can tighten that up. You know, the pros and cons are, yes, if you crank these a little bit tighter, yes, you're going to have more friction. You run less chance of losing the firearm. It's happened to me on a couple occasions where running across to, you know, the range at full sprint, where this has actually popped out, my gun has popped out and ended up landing on the ground. Not optimal. I know some guys, what they'll do is they'll put a bit of a screw hole here into the holster itself, and then they'll have a bungee wrapped around the pistol grip. So if they're doing an insertion method, or they're just cautious and they want that extra bit of retention, then they'll have a bungee here over top of the pistol grip. Not optimal for 2 reasons. One, that's an extra piece of something that could get fouled up. That's also one other thing that could get in the way on the draw stroke or when you're reholstering. So not optimal, but they make great gear. You know, I endorse them 100%. Good Canadian company. There's just pros and cons to, you know, the level of retention that you're working with, and for the purposes that you need these particular holsters. All right, so that's a Tier Tactical belt. So Tier Tactical. This one's Warrior gear, and then this one here is GBRS. One I have not set up yet, but it's in the works. It was made possible by Core Essentials. So their micro combat belt, as they refer to it as, solid belt as well. The inner belt is really rigid, and it comes with a heavy duty buckle here to get everything fixed up. So in the future, I will have this set up, and I'll give you guys a variation of what it looks like after the setup. All right, so this is a Core Essentials belt that I'll soon set up with a variation of something that you see here. In addition to the hanger, so recently purchased a True North Concepts hanger. So it's a very rigid aluminum hanger that I'll fix to the core belt, and then I'll most likely put a quick locking system from Safariland on here. That way it's going to give me the ability to swap out pistols and holsters depending on what gun I want to run for that particular training iteration. So True North Concepts, I got a couple of different versions here, so I'll eventually get this Core Essentials belt set up, and then I'll give you guys another review and some feedback on how it worked out. These two belts here, I'll use a variation of one or two of these for concealed carry stuff. So anytime I'm wearing either like a nice suit or you know, something that's more dress related, I'll use the Core Essentials leather belt with a nice belt buckle. So not only is it you know, a little bit cleaner, more formal, a little bit stylish based on the level of dress. I'll use this belt here, and then the other Core Essentials belt is a little bit more rigid. It's more of a combat belt, I guess you could say. What I really like about these particular belts is what you'll notice is the ratchet system right here. So once you get it on and around your waist and everything's set up, the ratchet system keeps it nice and tight. If you want a little bit looser, a little bit tighter based on how many slices of pizza you ate the night before, you can make that adjustment really quickly and really seamlessly. So super high quality gear, and customer service with those guys has been on point. And from a price point as well, the Core Essentials gear is reasonably priced. So there's a look at a few different combat belts, a few different belt setups based on the application of what we're doing. So, you know, concealed carry, obviously the combat belt's not going to be the belt of choice, but when I'm running a carrier, any one of these particular belts, depending on the gun that I want to run, I'll have that set up and ready to go. So all of these belts I've run, I've trialed, they're all good. There's, you know, pros and cons to personal preference, whether you want a more rigid belt or something that's got a little bit more flexibility. Me personally, I like having the flexibility that the TYR Tactical belt offers. All right, guys, any questions, you know, like, subscribe, share this with your buddies. Any questions, fire it off and we'll address them as they come in. Thanks, guys.